City of Stevens Point Redevelopment Authority meeting, recorded January 11, 2022.
Alrighty, it is 3 o'clock. I will call the Redevelopment Authority to order. Director, if you take the roll.
Schleiss.
Here.
Gardner.
Here.
Kneebone.
Here.
Cooper.
Here.
Cameter.
Here.
Laddick.
Here.
Barrett.
Present.
We are at a full capacity, 7-0.
All right, what a way to start the new year. Number 2, persons who wish to address the board on specific agenda items other than a public hearing must register their request at this time. Those who wish to address the board during a public hearing are not required to identify themselves until the public hearing is declared open by the chairperson. We do not have any public hearings. Do we have anybody registered?
We don't have anyone registered.
Alrighty, number 3, we'll go by since we have no public comment for anybody pre-registered. Number 1 on the agenda, election of officers, chairperson. Gene?
I nominate John Schleiss for chairperson.
Second that nomination.
We got a motion and a second, discussion. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Election of officers, vice chairman.
I'll nominate John Gardner for vice chair.
We have a motion by Dave,
I'll second.
second. Any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, John.
I have an acceptance speech, if you got about 20 minutes.
I'll put you a little later on the agenda.
All right.
Right
Next
after, well, you'll be number 13.
Next time.
Approval of the meeting minutes of October 19th, 2021. Director, anything to add?
Nothing additional to add.
Dave? Gene? Any discussion? All
I'll second it.
I got you already.
Okay.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 4, approval of financial reports from August 2021, September 2021, and October 2021. Director?
Nothing additional to add. There was a question on the $14,404 disbursement that occurred in September of 2021. Most of that was for the asbestos abatement at 1009 and 1013 2nd Street, which was the small engine repair facility adjacent to the Belkey lumber structure, and then the Redevelopment Authority's audit costs as well. So other than that, nothing additional to add.
Motion for approval for all 3 financial reports, August, September, October 21.
I'll second it.
Gene? Second. Discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 5, award bid for asbestos abatement and lead paint abatement for property at 1700 Strongs Avenue. Director?
3 bids were received for the asbestos and lead paint abatement for 1700 Strongs Avenue. This is being done as part of the raising of the structure. 3 bids were received, as I mentioned earlier. Low bid is Mavo Systems of Wisconsin. Second highest bid is DJK Environmental. We worked with both in the past. Would recommend the low bid of Mavo Systems in the amount not to exceed $1,820.
Commissioners? Gene?
I'll move, we accept the bid.
We got a motion?
Kneebone will second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? John?
Mr. Chairman, can Ryan explain to us exactly what's being removed here? I see where they've identified asbestos, but I'm not sure they're removing all of it. Can you explain that more, please?
Correct. The asbestos that was found is actually pretty minimal. Mainly it's in the paneling material in the basement area that was remodeled, I believe, when the church was converted into a dance studio. That's where the majority of the asbestos is. As I mentioned earlier, it's pretty minimal. And then it's pretty much anything that's non-friable would have to be, friable asbestos would have to be removed and disposed of properly.
What about the shingles? It mentions that there's likely asbestos in the shingles. Are they being removed, or are they just going to be part of the demo?
It's gonna be part of the demo.
Just part of the demo. So
Right.
if it's friable, it's being removed. If it's non-friable, it's just being torn down with the rest of it.
Correct.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Other questions, discussion? We have a motion, correct?
Correct.
Director will take the roll.
Schleiss.
Aye.
Gardner.
Aye.
Kneebone.
Aye.
Cooper.
Aye.
Cameter.
Aye.
Laddick.
Aye.
Barrett.
Aye.
7-0.
Motion carries. Number 6, award bid for raising a property at 1700 Strongs Avenue. Director.
So the city received 3 bids for the raising of the structure at 1700 Strongs Avenue. Essentially what we had done, the last time we did bid documents, we pretty much said, submit what you've got in sealed format. And then what we ended up doing for Strongs Avenue was actually putting out a bid package. And what that bid package did, or the bid document did, was just identify exactly what needs to be done for the property. We did ask that they fill out a specific sheet for submitting their bids, which Cluck, although the low bid did not necessarily follow the exact language of the bid documents. An additional thing to just take into consideration is we did ask for the complete removal of the adjacent parking lot as well. And Altman included that as part of their costs, but Cluck did not. And so that's why you see a significant price discrepancy between Altman and Cluck. So really, the redevelopment authorities just got to make the decision whether or not you're okay leaving the parking lot as is. Then I would recommend going with Kyle Cluck, trucking and excavation. If you want the site completely cleared for redevelopment, Altman Construction is probably your better bet, although they were more expensive.
Dave?
I see no reason to remove that parking lot at our expense. So I make a motion to award the bid to Kyle Cluck Trucking, amount of $24,960.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
So just to be clear, the motion you're making leaves the parking lot
Yes.
intact.
Yes.
Now, why do you think that's a good idea?
Because there's no structure there, it's just gravel, so there's no reason to remove that. When we redevelop it, who's ever doing the project can work that material out or in, wherever they want at a later date.
Did we get any
The site
testing
will
done there?
basically be clear, it's just that the parking lot's left there. It's not a big deal.
Did we get any ground, soil testing done there? Or
No, the where the parking lot is, there used to be a home there, I think up until 1980. And it was demolished at that point, and the church or the owner of that specific property purchased it and did the parking lot.
would we be liable if they found the next Superfund site underneath that parking lot?
We could always do, it's probably a smart idea to do like a phase 1, phase 2 on that site once it's been cleared. Just to make it more shovel ready.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Jim, second. Further discussion?
Yeah, I have a question, actually. So the parking lot is gravel, is that correct? Would there be an advantage to us removing it?
I believe it's a blacktop parking lot.
Blacktop,
It is.
even blacktop.
Mhm.
Leave it there.
Would it be an advantage to us to get the property redeveloped to remove it, or?
You know, just given the likelihood that whomever would purchase the property and redevelop it, they're likely going to utilize the parking lot area as well. You know, as part of their site prep, they would be able to remove it. So no, I don't believe it would be a detriment.
I don't think it's worth $21,000 to do it.
No.
I just think that's too much.
Other questions? Director, take the roll.
Schleiss.
Aye.
Gardner.
Aye.
Kneebone.
Aye.
Cooper.
Aye.
Kemeter.
Aye.
Laddick.
Aye.
Barrett.
Aye.
7-0.
Motion carries. Number 7, adopt guidelines for the multifamily rental conversion grant program. Director.
So before you is the same program that we had brought forward during the October Redevelopment Authority. This is for the conversion of existing multifamily rentals to single-family homes. There wasn't a whole lot of comment provided to us during or after the meeting from the Redevelopment Authority, so we thought this would be a good time to bring it back. And the terms and eligible improvements and properties are consistent with what you saw a few months ago. Mark Cordes from the Community Development Department is here as well to answer any additional questions, but we would recommend approval as presented. More than happy to answer anything else you folks might have as well.
Commissioners, questions? Motions?
Mr. Chairman, just a quick question. The first one is, should be vacant for less than 12 months. Is that because you're dealing with the non-conforming status? Is that the idea?
Correct.
So if it was vacant for more than 12 months, it would be just an empty, it would revert back to single family at that point.
Correct.
Okay.
This is a way to encourage those properties to convert before they lose their grandfathered status. Voluntary loss of grandfather, essentially.
Other questions? Gene?
Is there sufficient funds available to, if we have multiple in a year to handle it? To cover that expense?
Good question. We could handle within our current budget about 3 a year if they were to do the full 35,000. Anything above and beyond that, we'd come to the authority for special permission, try to feed that specific program, with additional funds if needed.
We could probably also participate through the CDBG program
Right.
if there was income qualified participants.
Other questions, motions, comments? Gene?
I move that we adopt the guidelines for the multiple family rental conversion grant program.
We have a motion to approve.
Second.
Second, Dave. Any more further discussion? Director will take the roll.
Schleiss.
Aye.
Gardner.
Aye.
Nebone.
Aye.
Cooper.
Aye.
Kemeter.
Aye.
Laddick.
Aye.
Barrett.
Aye.
7-0.
Motion carries. Number 8, review of adopted 2022 budget for Redevelopment Authority Fund 208 and Housing Trust Fund, Fund 246. Director.
So Redevelopment Authority really manages two specific funds, Fund 208 and Fund 246. Fund 208 is the development fund. Fund 246 is a housing trust fund. Pretty much, I put together a budget every year, work with Comptroller Laddick as part of that. There are just a few small items to point out. Mainly with Fund 208, the redevelopment programs have had pretty minimal use over the last few years. There's a number of reasons for it, and I think with some of the changes that we've made this last year with upping, like the Neighbor Helping Neighbor grant, and being a little bit more aggressive with our advertising or encouragement of folks to take advantage of those programs, we'll see the number of grants requested increase, hopefully in 2022 and 2023. And I know we did provide an additional $5,000 during the last budget cycle for promotion of those specific programs. At the end of the day, it just comes down to staffing and what we can do and getting that information out there. And so we do want to continue to advertise these as much as we reasonably can. Fund 246, interest revenues have been budgeted just shy of $40,000, consistent with previous years. There was a $40,000 budgeted item for redevelopment studies and plans. The original plan was to do a master study or master planning for the Shopco property. However, this wasn't done in 2021. So if members of the Redevelopment Authority have an idea of an area that you'd like to have staff focus on and maybe start doing some redevelopment planning for, one of the things that we've talked about previously would be Edgewater, Edgewater Manor area on the waterfront, even those neighborhoods surrounding the Old Main that are tired and are in need of redevelopment might be worthwhile for us to explore. And we can always bring that back and give you a few options as the Redevelopment Authority over the next few months. So there's really no formal action required. This is really information only. I'm also here to answer any additional questions you might have. I know Comptroller Treasurer Laddick's also on the phone and can answer any questions that this body might have as well.
Commissioners, any questions? John?
I've been discussing Just very briefly, let me back up. In the past, we've partnered with CAP Services to make a one-stop loan program, so that partnered with community development block grants, with the other programs that CAP administers, and they administers ours as well. We haven't been very successful in marketing these programs in the last 10 years. I'd like the staff to explore some options, to maybe do some linkages, either with CAP or with other agencies, so that we can actually get these programs up and operating. And I would just ask the staff to explore some of those options, so that, maybe not this year might be a tough year because of lack of materials or lack of contractors, et cetera, but at least start the ball rolling so we can get some of these programs operational again.
Other questions, comments? If not, no action is needed on this particular item. Number 9, request from City of Stevens Point Community Development Department to fund a portion of the director's salary from the Redevelopment Authority. Director, make your sales pitch.
Thank you. So due to retirement in the assessing division of the Community Development Department, we have an opportunity to realign some of our staffing wages to I think better align for what the city needs in terms of staffing. Instead of having two full-time members in the city's assessing department, we can have the one, and then one of our contracted city assessor as well. But through that, internally, there's been a real need for an additional planner, an economic development specialist position. We had an economic development specialist position, I think in 2010, 2011, 2012. And then a few years later, as part of restructuring, that position actually took over zoning administration from the building inspector. And so that economic development specialist position kind of went by way of the wind. But because of that change, and because of some opportunities with some of our internal staff, we're looking at two major changes. One would be promoting our administrative assistant to a community development technician position. That person, Maria Moore, would become certified in assessment tech, in being an assessment tech, and can help in the assessing division as needed, especially during the quieter months of permitting, mainly right now in January, February, when assessing is very busy with personal property and doing some of the additional assessment requirements. And then we would be taking the funds from the property appraiser position that's currently vacant, and actually applying them to this neighborhood planner economic development specialist position. But in order to do that, both of these changes, there's a need for just shy of $20,000 to offset the changes. The original thought from city staff was to have the redevelopment authority offer to cover that difference of $19,557.32 to those specific positions, but in conversations with the comptroller and just kind of dealing with this a little bit internally, was it doesn't make sense to fund those positions out of redevelopment authority. Within this body, the community development director serves as the executive director of the redevelopment authority. There's some ability for us to sign paperwork with Mr. Schleiss as chairman as well, and doing a lot of the staff work for this body. I felt it was probably more imperative that if we're interested in pursuing this, that the redevelopment authority would pay about $20,000 worth of my salary instead of the two other positions. There is benefit to the body having the neighborhood planner economic development specialist position. I've talked to a few of you folks previously. We are very busy to the point where we're drowning in work. And so having an additional staff person that can do things like write RFPs for, let's say, like the Edgewater property, or managing, going through the raising for 1,700 Strongs, take some of that work off of my plate so I can focus on some of the bigger picture items, courting developers, trying to get developments in the ground, things of that nature. So I provided this, pretty decent overview within the memo. More than happy to answer any additional questions. The concept would be that the Fund 246, the Housing Trust Fund, the interest from those notes that we have out would pay for the salary The big thing here is ensuring that the position is funded more or less in perpetuity until additional funds are available to take that burden off of the redevelopment authority and back onto the general fund. So I know Comptroller Treasurer Laddick's here as well. I don't know if he wants to talk about the financial impacts. Otherwise, more than happy to answer any additional questions for you folks. I did include the proposed reorganization chart from the existing department structure to the proposed reorg, and then a draft copy of the job description for the neighborhood planner economic development specialist.
Commissioners, comments, questions?
It says that the long-term goal is that the proposed business improvement district in the downtown area will pay a portion of this. That's the transfer over, right? What's the timeline on that, do you think?
We started working on the downtown business improvement district about 2 years ago. And it's unfortunately this last year when the Edgewater Manor closure discussion started to occur, that really became a back burner item for city staff. In conversations with the downtown district, they're very interested in restarting those conversations. It could be another, 3 to 4 years before we finally get something implemented.
Other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I always defer to staff for aligning their resources in the office, but it's the forever character of this request that gives me a little pause. The city's budget's pretty big, and I would think that 20,000 should be found someplace in that budget. If we committed our interest as a backstop to this forever, effectively that means we can't ever spend the principal, because we're always relying on the interest to be paying this in the future, which means that we don't have any money to spend, because now the principal is committed to supporting this staffing position. I have trouble with that, I guess, and I think maybe you were kind of alluding to that.
That was the direction I was going in, is
Yeah, when you were talking about
how long do we
it's gonna
budget for
last.
this? How long do we have to hold our breath and not spend trust fund money
Exactly.
until it starts accruing interest again?
So that's one of the parts of this that gives me pause before I'm willing to approve that. And I listen to staff if they've got some rebuttal, or perhaps even the comptroller if he's got some comments on that.
Corey, any comments?
Sure. Well, I can, certainly comment. And I know it's easy to look at, the city budget, that it's, about $26 million, and to think, okay, certainly there has to be room there. But I think as Alder Kneebone can tell you as well, the budgets have been pretty tight. And actually for the 2022 budget, we had to cut contingency way back, farther back than we ever had before. And part of that was because we had a state aid reduction that we didn't find out about until, pretty much the last minute. So, as much as it might seem like there's availability in the budget, and, maybe there would be someday, I certainly can't guarantee that, especially with, how inflation has been trending and everything else. So that's where I think, a real key piece of this is, that if the redevelopment authority is willing to do this, that it is a hard and fast ongoing commitment, more or less in perpetuity, just because otherwise if we adopt the structure and it costs more money and we're relying on the redevelopment authority to pay for basically that cost difference, to kick in the additional dollars for that. If 3 or 4 years from now you say, well, we're not going to do this anymore, then that leaves us with a budget hole. So that's really the concern as far as, if you're going to commit to this, and of course it's your choice whether you want to do this or not, but if you do want to do this, it does need to be a stable commitment so that we can continue to fund this structure, because I don't think we'd be looking to change the organization structure back in 3 or 4 years. And then I would also say with the bid district, you'd also have to be willing that if the bid district wouldn't get created, to continue this support. So it is critical.
Other questions, comments? Dave?
Have we run this past the common council yet, or is this the first?
To me, this made the first step was to get the commitment for financing before we would take it to the common council
Okay.
for consideration.
Okay, right. I like what you're doing there. I think it makes sense, but I don't know if it's the purpose of the redevelopment authority to fund any of this. I have a little issue with that, I guess, just to be honest. But I like what you're doing. I think the plan is great. So it makes a lot of sense, and I hope you can do it, but I'm not sure we should use the redevelopment authority money to do it.
Sure, and I should clarify, I mean, what we're asking is the authority to pay a portion of my salary as the executive director for the authority, so we can clear up, indirectly, clear up money in the community development budget for these additional promotion and positions, I'm just saying I don't work for free, so, just kidding.
I have a couple of comments. When I worked in Dallas, I was a neighborhood planner, and I had 4 neighborhoods, and it was a lot of work. There's a lot of opportunities we have in the city, but we don't have enough staff to make that happen. I look at how long is the half of Walmart been empty out here on the east side, and the cops store empty. If we had somebody that could get some kind of a mixed use development in there, it would vastly improve the city's tax revenues, and probably allow the city then at some point to pay the rest of that salary. I think we almost have to, because I think the times demand the extra staff, and any way that we can make it happen, I think we should try. Thanks.
At some point in the past, hadn't the redevelopment authority, or maybe at the time it was the community development authority, didn't they pay? Wasn't there some kick-in, maybe not the right word, for the salary of whether it was former director Ostrowski, or I think that we've done that before. I don't know the
I
time
thought it was around
frames on that.
30,000 if I remember right, but
How much?
I thought it was around 30. But it's been a long time.
Yeah, and I did try to look back to find out specifically, and it was just one of those things that got away from me. I looked at in my own files and didn't find anything specific, but I do know that historically the CDA did pay for a portion of the executive director's salary.
Mr. Chairman, my recollection was that we did, and it goes back quite a number of years. I looked at 14, I couldn't find anything in the agenda minutes either, but it was it was a fixed period of time. It was just to get kind of over a hump, and then we stopped. And it's, again, the perpetuity character of this request is what gives me pause. $20,000 doesn't sound like a lot of money, but that could be a single loan for housing rehab. And so we didn't do it this year, we'd lose 1 loan. We didn't do it next year, that'd be 3 loans, because it'd be 2 in the second year, 1 in the first. 3 years, it'd be 6 loans we wouldn't have done. After a while, I sympathize with what Alderman Kneebone said, but we're also losing it on the other side with money that we could be doing in terms of housing rehab programs. That's just one example of what we could be using that money for.
So if the council would approve, then they may appropriate the money, and if there's, they determine there's a need for staff, and
I think, it sounds like you may have 1 vote already.
Well, I mean, yeah, the issue is, you can't, we could take these types of changes to the council, but if we're not able to fund it, I don't think city staff would even take it to council for consideration. That's why we brought it to, or I brought it to Redevelopment Authority first, and, kind of identified ways for us to offset these costs in the future with the Business Improvement District funding part of the neighborhood planner, economic development specialist position. But like I said, that could take, 3 to 5 years before that organization is up and running and able to commit funds through their own levy abilities. The other option would be, and I'm not for this, would be to put a cap on it, 5 years. And then hopefully within the next 5 years, we've got additional $20,000 available in the community development budget for transferring the salary back to the general fund and not out of the redevelopment authority.
That's kind of what I was thinking, if there was a way to put a sunset on it, just so it wasn't perpetuity, that's a long time. And if there was a way to at least see the light at the end of the tunnel, so we knew that we'd have access to these funds again, and interest coming back in, that might be a compromise. I know it seems like then day one, you're already having to plan on how am I gonna pay for this? As it's being paid out of it, you have to try to figure a way to transfer that, but I think that pill would be easier to swallow, committing funds to it, if there were an end to it.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Kanowski, would, as a practical matter, the 20,000 is an annual cost, is that correct?
Correct.
As a practical matter, when do you think somebody really would be on board? And what would the cost for this year be as a reasonable estimate?
If we were to go through in February, I would probably post it as soon as I could in March, which means we'd probably get somebody here. I'm trying to think when we hired Adam Kuhn as planner's zoning administrator. I think he didn't start until June or July. So, I mean, you'd be halfway through the year before we would get this person.
That's kind of what I was anticipating. So really, this year, you're looking at about a round figure, $10,000.
Right.
So if we said 10,000 for this year, if we said, going with what Mr. Barrett was saying there, if you said one more year, that's 20, that's 30,000 gross from us. We're probably not going to do a lot of loans this year because honestly, we're not set up for it. And maybe the year is going to be a tough one because of material cost anyway. As you said to me earlier, the contractors are already out a year for scheduling. So maybe this is a lost year anyway. So as a compromise, maybe, 10,000 this year, 20 next year, and then the council's got to pick it up. And that's the approach that we would say to the council. And I'm just throwing that out on the table for discussion. That's not a motion just yet.
Well, it did sound like it was, best case scenario, it was gonna take probably 4 years to set up that program, so I don't know if 2 years would be enough.
Well, but again, as a practical matter, the business improvement district, their focus is going to be spending money downtown, and for maybe staff that's focused specifically just on the downtown. That's what business improvement districts typically do. They typically don't fund a city staff person, and that's just my experience with them. Unless you can tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, the one of the goals of the economic development position would be to be the city's Main Street manager, so it'd be part of their position, working on the Main Street program itself. And that's what we had done previously. And when the last economic development specialist position was hired, part of the justification was we got rid of the Main Street manager, which was a city position. And so, if you give them, 10, 15% of their position, focusing on that downtown and working with the downtown business group, that could be partially funded out of the bid itself. And I think that's pretty much what staff's plan is. But it could be, like I said earlier, 3 to 5 years before they're up and running and financially stable enough to commit to doing something like that.
I just need a little clarification. So your existing structure is you plus 10 positions. The proposed reorganization is you plus 9 positions, but the city assessor is contracted.
Correct. Well, no, it's still the same number of positions, they're just realigned.
Realigned. So we're looking at paying somebody more when we realign these positions, or can we Can we try and do it where we stay within the same salary schedule?
We did have both of the updated position and then the neighborhood planner position sent off to Baker Tilly, which is the city's personnel consultant, to do a salary survey on this, and both positions did get bumped up a grade or two, depending on which one it was.
Okay, and how much is a grade or two from where they were? And I'm thinking it's not 20 grand, but I don't know what your city assessor contracted instead of having it on staff is gonna be.
The city assessor is currently contracted.
Okay.
Yep, so that doesn't
that's-
change, right, so
okay.
you lose the property appraiser position, and the assistant city assessor stays as a full-time staff member. I mean, and I mentioned this previously, the other alternative would be just to keep the property appraiser position and refill that. You know, we've made do without it, but, you know, if we aren't able to get some type of funding, we're just gonna go back to that historic model of having 2 full-time staffers in the assessing division.
But if you don't need it, why fill it then?
Part of there is a need for additional assistance, and that's when you get this community development technician position, where Maria would get the certifications to do the personal property end of assessment.
Okay, which makes sense.
Yep. So there is some backfilling that occurs there.
Other questions, comments, motions? Or what if we go 10, 20, 10, 0? That way it phases in and the
I think my preference, if this were to go through, I don't mind the sunset. I think that Corey and I can finagle some $20,000 over the next 5 years into the budget to help offset that. But just getting it out there and getting these positions set up, I think is going to be a success for the community. And I think that's, the redevelopment authority will see the success of that. And but give us at least 5 years to make up that $20,000.
I think that's the only fair thing for the candidate too, because you don't want to bring somebody in here for a year or two and say, oh, sorry, no more funding for your job. And we kind of knew that, but we just didn't want to tell you. You want to give someone at least 5 years to work the position to the best that they can. I think that would be a fair number.
Maybe they could start writing a grant the day they start to backfeed the HTF.
That's a possibility. But it's not that uncommon. I know the county's got a number of positions that are grant funded.
Yeah, I guess I'd want some assurance that if you can come up with money before the 5 years, that, you know, we could cut back on what the redevelopment authority's kick is.
Yeah.
If you don't need it, don't take it.
Yeah.
You know, type thing.
Make it a priority.
Yeah.
Right, and not dip into principal.
any type of a motion. I think you still haven't done a total sales pitch, Director.
I'm not very good at, I'm not good at selling my ideas on this stuff, so I can sell the city, I can't sell myself, that's part of the problem, so.
Dogs and peanut butter for 5 years.
Well, if we don't have a motion, we'll just drop the,
I'm trying to think how to word it to accommodate everything that we talked about. Move to approve with a 5-year, I mean, I need some help with the wording. I will certainly make the motion, but I don't know how to word it.
anybody? What's your thoughts?
Like a 5-year commitment on the part of the redevelopment authority to fund up to $20,000 of the director's salary? Something along those lines?
With only 10 on the first year?
If that's,
With the
that'll
cost
work.
not to exceed 20.
Yeah, that's up
Yeah.
to, yep.
Okay, so I would move to approve the redevelopment authorities funding a portion of the director's salary beginning in 2022 for $10,000 and no more than $20,000 for the next 4 years.
And then making it a priority to backfill that as able within the general fund.
Include that in the motion, yes. Is there a second? Is there a second?
I'll second.
When Dave seconds it. I was just gonna kill the motion.
Ryan, you don't, does that 10 hamstring you this year? Is that, I just, I don't want to start it out by, if it's not going to work for you right away.
Or you have to get a substandard candidate or something.
Right.
No, I don't think the 10 hamstrings us this year. I think we can make it work. Thanks for asking.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further comments, questions? Director will take the roll.
Schleiss,
Aye.
Gardner,
Aye.
Kneebone,
Aye.
Cooper,
Aye.
Kemeter,
Aye.
Laddick,
Aye.
Barrett,
Aye.
7-0.
And you can give us a semi-annual update on where you are with getting some funding for this.
Yep.
Motion passes. Number 10, update on EPA Brownfield Assessment Grant. Director.
We've had a very busy year utilizing the EPA Brownfield Assessment Grant. The majority of those funds have been paid for when working on the Great Northern Distilling Project. And so just doing the test wells, submitting some of the case closures, remedial action plans, I should say, to DNR, that's been taking the majority of our times and funds. I will say we are past the point now of utilizing those funds any further. That's really the developer's responsibility for some of the vapor mitigation that they're going to have to do and some of the vapor mitigation planning. So, but otherwise, you'll hopefully notice in the next few weeks the Jerns property, which the EPA Brownfield Assessment Grant did pay a portion of. Some of those dirt stockpiling that was out there for a number of years will be removed and properly disposed of, so that's all I've got.
Questions? Not, no action is needed. Number 11, Executive Director's Report.
Two main items. We just talked about Great Northern Distilling. They did receive a CWED loan for $600,000. The remaining is being financed out of the Nakusa Port Edward State Bank. We are currently waiting on a commercial property appraisal for that loan, but I would suspect that we would transfer that property by the end of next month to Great Northern for their spring construction. So they did not hit their deadline of opening at the end of February. We all kind of thought that was pretty aggressive, but we'll be at least able to transfer the property and let them do their project. The other item of note is Northside Yard. A few members of the Redevelopment Authority, actually just Mr. Gardner and I, were able to tour the building last Friday. That's the building number 2, which is the first building they started working on, so it's the easternmost building. It's very much coming along. They've got occupancy for the 4th and 3rd floor, and they have, I believe, a dozen leases already beginning on the 1st of February. But it's very much coming along, and building number 1, which is the westernmost building, has starting to get some of the interior finishes as well. So that's all I have for the director's report.
Any questions for Director? Not, no action is needed. We are adjourned. Thank you for coming this afternoon.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.